Welcome to Solutions with Courtney Anderson. That's our show. And I am the host, Courtney Anderson. This is episode 175. 175 shows that we have completed. I'm still amazed. Thank you for being here today, being part of the program, one of our community members. I always note that please stop by CourtneyAnderson.com. It's our central website where we link to other um, uh, sites and things that we're working on, but we also have the blog. And we've got all 175 of these programs available for you. And we have expanded notes and links. We also have our companion show. So this is our audio program. We also have our video program. And so please stop by CourtneyAnderson.com. Come to the show page. So on our CourtneyAnderson.com, you're going to go to page, the episode 175 page. You can just search for that. There's also a link that should be in the file where you download our program. I want to ask you if there's something in this program that's at all of use. Please leave a rating or a review on iTunes or Stitcher or Libsyn or anywhere you're accessing this program. And also, thank you again. There's honestly nothing is more exciting than sort of, throwing a party and people show up. And so, but this is now 175 episodes in, but every single time that we complete a program and every single time we release another one out, through all the distribution channels we have that are growing, it's still that glee and wonder and excitement that anybody at all accesses the program. And then as I've been working to build the infrastructure around this vehicle, I wasn't sure at all, obviously, if it would be viable when we started. But now that it's grown and it's so successful, I have we're creating more infrastructure. We're adding more resources, and I've got data that's much more helpful. And I'm seeing you, our community members, literally all over the world in many places I've never even been. And there's just something so exhilarating about that. So again, please leave ratings and reviews, and again, your own social media. So wherever you are in the world, please share our program on your social media, via your social media, so that we can continue to have hopefully a positive impact and grow the solutions and things that we share out there among the population that would be able to benefit from them. So again, thank you for making so much of this happen, and thank you for sharing on social media. Thank you for leaving ratings and reviews. Please contact me if you have any show suggestions or ideas or feedback. I just love to receive your feedback. So many of the shows come from your questions, suggestions, ideas. So thank you. And I also do ask that you do support our show sponsors. When you look on our website, CourtneyAnderson.com, you're going to see different ads and text links to affiliate links. And those are some of the ways that we're trying to create additional revenue streams, and then of course be able to invest more in this program and all the other webinars and courses and seminars and other things that we've got on our projected horizon. So please support those sponsors. This episode 175 is part of the series that absolutely you, the community members, are the reason we have this entire series. But the series is Courtney, I Am Curious. And like I said, this is a series. We were doing our shows, and we started to get so many fantastic questions, concerns, issues from you. And so it seemed that it would be the most appropriate thing to create a whole series where it's just me answering individually questions that you have that are somewhat specific to my experience. And so Courtney, I Am Curious is that series. So this specific show you've asked me about the following. Our episode today title is, what does it mean that you are the workplace relationship expert? Courtney, I am curious. What does it mean that you are the workplace relationship expert? That's an excellent question. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. What does it mean? You'll see on the CourtneyAnderson.com site and lots of the materials that, and many of the articles. So I've been fortunate enough to share some of my ideas in many different media settings, so through television and in print media, and many times they'll take the information that I have provided them in my materials, and so this workplace relationship expert is on my materials, and you'll see it also in articles where I'm quoted in a leading periodical, the Business Week or the Wall Street Journal or anything. And so it's exciting, right? And what does it mean? Okay, well, let's start at the beginning. Where did it come from? Me. So I'm the genesis of this, and the reason I came up with the term, the workplace relationship expert, is really simple. So here's very short version of it. So I was running my law firm. So I was a lawyer, and I was in Texas in the U.S., and I was spending the majority of my time on being a lawyer. So I had my my office, and I had a little staff, and I have my clients, and I'm doing what lawyers do, right? And so I started to handle some cases where my clients would bring me these cases where they were employment, work related. So the person was at their job, and then they told me, some horrible illegal thing happened. They were denied a promotion that they were entitled to, or they were treated unfairly at work based on things that weren't related to the job. So they would say, well, I was doing my job, really, great performance at my job, but it's because of my gender, it's because of my age that I was then, a work-related job decision was made. I was assigned, a different shift, or I was not provided opportunity to apply for a promotion or whatever. And so in many parts of the world, there are laws that prohibit exactly that. The laws are sort of big picture intended that we want as many people as possible that are able to work. And to do that, then we have to take away obstacles. We have to take away somebody being unable to work and have an opportunity to enjoy their work and earn a living. And then when you earn a living, of course, you can, in theory, then share some of that with the collective society. That's why we have taxes and things of that nature. And so the idea is you want to remove some of these obstacles that are preventing people who really are able to do their job from doing it, simply because of not what they do at their job, right? What you do, were you on time? Did you complete the task? Was it high quality? Did you do it the right way the first time? That's one issue, what you do. This other issue that was impacting people was they were being subject to decisions that were made based on who they are, not what they do, but who they are. So again, their gender, their age, their perceived ability or disability, their actually perceived religious national origin, in the U.S., color, whether or not somebody's pregnant, whether or not somebody was a veteran, had served in the military. So somebody's saying, "Oh my goodness, I'm ready to work. I'm trained, and I'm an excellent worker. And my work is I'm an accountant, but I can't get anyone to give me a job because they don't want to hire me because I'm a female, or because I'm a male, or because of my age, or because I am a veteran. I used to serve in the military, or because of my my national origin, or because of my religion, or because of all this stuff." And so the problem is that what I am, right, who I am, is different from what I do. So and we want to do, ideally, big picture, is get as many people again who are able and willing, and that contribute to society. Not just the economic part, where when you work, ideally at some point you're able to contribute financially, but that you're contributing your knowledge. One of the things we talk about a lot internationally in area of business is the brain drain, right? And it's not a joke. The idea that if somebody's in a geographic place on the globe, and often they're born there, or they immigrated, or there as a child with family, so it wasn't up to them, and they don't have the opportunity because of they're not the tribe or the religion or whatever that the powers that be desire to have work in their organization. What happens as we've had technology and changes, right? So it used to be, if we were on some parts of the globe and other people were in other parts of the globe, we didn't even know that the other parts of the globe existed, right? We had, for incredibly long amounts of time, people thought that the earth was flat, meaning that they thought whatever part they were on was all that there is, because there was water around them at some point, and then as they explored and thought, well, then that means that sort of it's flat, and then there's some water surrounding it, and I don't, whatever. They didn't even realize there was like other sides that it was a circle or a sphere, and that there were other parts where it wasn't flat at all, A, and B, that there's stuff that they didn't even know existed, where there's other sides and other parts of this same entity where there's other opportunity. But we've had the technology change, and we've had transportation and logistic opportunity change. So what happens in more modern times is somebody is in a situation where they're being given these messages, you, for whatever your characteristics are, what who you are. You're not going to get that accounting job. And historically in the past, you just had to, okay, what can I do? Right? Because you didn't even know if there was anywhere else to go, and even if you did, how would you get there? Nobody, these things weren't easy to do. In more modern times, if someone's in a part of the world and they're an accountant, they're really good, they enjoy it, it is something that we call in all of our programs where they're practicing the joyful art of business, right? So accounting makes them happy. They, more often than not, it makes them feel good about themselves, and they're competent at it, and they feel good when they, solve a good accounting challenge, and they're not allowed to practice their professional craft. In many instances in modern times, what people will do is that they have access to knowledge that there's somewhere else they could go with those skills, and then that other place, once they get there, there's an opportunity for them potentially to be able to be hired as an accountant and do accounting. And then, potentially even be in a situation where they could take part in future opportunities, right, for promotion or growth or higher wages or whatever. If somebody's sitting somewhere and they're aware, they know where it is, and they even know how to get there, and they believe, maybe because they've been other people that who have gone to these other places and come back and told other people, or they've written letters, or more recently an email or text messages and said, hey, look, I went to this one place, and if you're an accountant and they want accounting, it doesn't matter to them that you're the, religious or gender or tribal or, sect or whatever, that's the hindrance in that place where you are. So when people find that out, what I would do if I wanted to do the work that I do and I love and it makes me happy, and I was somewhere where I couldn't do it because people kept saying to me, well, you're not, whatever, the thing we would ideally, you're not who we want, right? You're not the whatever, right, group or ethnicity or religion or size or color or whatever. And I knew there was somewhere else I could go. And that when I went to the other place, that this sort of artificial obstacle for me doing my accounting, if I knew it would be removed, it wasn't an issue to those people. They just wanted a good accounting professional. I would do everything in my power to get to that place. Because if I stay where I am and I'm unable to change my gender, religion, color, ethnicity, tribal, relationship, surname, whatever it is, that's the quote, the artificially constructed obstacle to me being able to, work and enjoy my life and have future opportunities. If I can't change that, and usually you can't, that's why these things are so powerful. You're just in the wrong group, and most of these classifications, you're born in that group. You were born in the wrong, ancestry group. You were born in the wrong, whatever. And there's not anything you can do about it. I mean, to some degree, people sometimes, maybe if they could move away somewhere where not everybody, maybe to a bigger city. But in many parts of the world, these things are so ingrained in the culture that even if you went to a big city, people are still going to recognize that you're that thing. And I've asked, when I go to different parts of the world, I ask people, I'll say, well, how do you know that they're that tribe or whatever? How can you tell? Like, I don't understand it. And they'll explain it to me. Well, it's easy, right? Like their surname, the accent when they speak, all these things are clues that give them away, right? And I can't tell because I'm not from that part of our shared planet, and I don't know those cultural cues. I don't even know what group is the quote good group and what group is the quote non-desired group. I don't even know enough to know that. So to me, all of it goes over my head. I don't understand it. I don't understand the specifics of it. Now, I do understand the power dynamics. And so what I'm saying is that if there's no other way for you to get in access to the life where you can explore your own intellectual interests, have the opportunity to financially support yourself and or your family and loved ones, have a hope for a future that you can get promotions and new experiences. If there's none of that available, and even if you move to a larger city or population center in your part of the world, and you still can't quote escape these things because they're just so ingrained in the culture, but you need to go further away, many people do that. And as I said, I would do it in a heartbeat. I would do it in less than a heartbeat. If the situation was such that I couldn't stay wherever it was that I happened to be and do the work that I enjoy, the intellectually and professionally, and be able to um, that sense of pride of getting your work completed and doing your best. If I couldn't do that at all because of my accent or my dialect or my surname or my physical, something about my physical appearance or whatever, then what can you do? You either just stay where you are and you're denied a whole lifetime. Your whole lifetime is denied anything differently. And for many people, when we have knowledge that it's not a flat planet and that there is somewhere else I can go, it might be really far. It might be expensive in terms of the risk to go there. It might be expensive in terms of resources. It might be dangerous. But if my only other choice is to sit where I am, where I have literally no option, maybe I work not at all because I'm totally excluded from that part of society. Maybe I can work, but it's only in work that I have no interest in. That's manual or that's not intellectually stimulating, and I know that that's it. There's nothing I can do. Then I'm gonna try to go to wherever that place is, because at least if I get to that place and I have a potential opportunity, a shot. I don't care if it's a 2% shot. It's more than I have where I am, because I have 100% guaranteed no shot because I'm not the right whatever group, right? I'm not the right tribe. I'm not the right national origin. I'm not the right ethnicity. I don't speak the right dialect. I don't have the right surname. I'm doomed. And there's nothing I can do about any of this. Even if I move to the big city, people still be able to figure it out. So this is totally way oversimplified, obviously, and I know that all the experts in different areas are cringing because I leave out so many details, but big picture, my argument is simply this. The ability to have the option to work is a powerful lure for many of us. All of the benefits of learning intellectually what you're capable of, being respected, the ability to financially support yourself, and then have choices. Maybe you'll decorate your place where you live. Maybe you'll support a family member, a friend in their dream. Maybe you'll have opportunities for hobbies or leisure. I mean, this is a dream. I mean, I'm legitimately always very emotional. Self-determination. It's powerful. And so when we talk about workplace and we talk about what happened when I said I was coming up with the idea for this label for what I was doing, it's because I'm a lawyer and I'm dealing with people and they're coming to my law firm and they're giving these really just, to me personally, disgusting explanations that they're being denied their opportunity to do their job because of this stuff about who they are. And it makes me beyond upset. Because it's not like, oh, they didn't get the job they wanted. No, you're denying them the opportunity to be able to do it, really, because they're in the wrong group. And the law says you can't do this. It's part of it. So part of me is disgusted because I know that they're not supposed to be doing that. The other part of it is if organizations, employers are allowed to continue to do this, laws are simply words on a piece of paper. We talk about this in our Law Lovers Lounge and we talk about legal issues often. They're useless without enforcement. They're nothing. It's just, they only have power if you enforce them. So part of me is motivated by that. The other part of me is motivated by my own self-interest. I want to be able to work. I want to be able to have opportunity. I want to be able to go to school and to earn a living and meet new people. I want to be able to have interesting things to do mentally with my activities. I don't want to be forced either not to work or to work in some non-desirable or low-level position that will prevent me from having that quality of life, right? I mean, this is a powerful thing. And so I'm totally paying attention, and of course I'm paying attention in my law firm, but I'm hypersensitive to these issues for multiple reasons, right? So when someone is telling me about this, and sometimes it was someone who might have been in the US and the United States, and they were born and lived there their whole life, and sometimes it's somebody who's come to the US, like I was telling that story, right? So they're part of the world and they sort of make a calculation and realize, hey, I have potentially a better shot somewhere else, and they're going to take it. Like you and I would take it. We'll take it. Hey, like I said, less than a heartbeat, I'm out of there. Because if you're telling me I'm doomed here and I can't do anything, but I know if I can just get somewhere else, I can be treated as an individual, not as that gender, that religion, that ethnicity, that tribe, which is the thing that is people are telling me is preventing me from, the opportunities. If I can instead be seen as Courtney, as Fred, as as an individual and have a chance of being treated as an individual, then I'm taking that. I'm going to take it. And so as a lawyer, I handled these cases and I saw these things happening. And of course, I'm upset because it's illegal to do this, right? You're not allowed to, what the law, the words say. You have to make decisions at work based on the work. So if somebody's late to work, if they're drunk, if they didn't turn their work in on time, if it was poor quality, then you're going to need to look at either disciplining them, or in the States, assuming the rules are met about notice and everything, they may not even be able to keep their job because they're not performing their job. That makes total sense. We all want that. We all want the best. The brain drain, of course, is what happens when people leave geographic regions who are really ambitious and have aspirations professionally, and they go to these other places where they perceive that they have opportunities, and they're leaving. It's draining. So they're taking their intellectual, their brain, their gifts that would benefit the society by their intellect, their knowledge, their inventions, their leadership, their all of that good stuff, and they're just taking it with them to these other places where they perceived that there was more opportunity. It's a brain drain. It's a very, very serious issue. So, and there's two sides, of course. One, of course, you want to make your part of the world totally accessible to people that are there so they don't leave, right? That's the easy part. And then at the same time, as humans, we have all these different societies and everything, that there's still a competitive part to this where societies benefit when there's brain drain. The society where the person takes their brain and then adds that to that society benefits, right? Intellectually, in terms of economics. So there should be, hopefully, a healthy competitiveness to this, right? Where different organizational human societies are sort of, putting out their own little messages and marketing. Hey, come here, if you're, we love people who are accountants to come here, look at, we'll do everything we can. We don't care anything about, what tribe you're in or your dialect or your surname or whatever. And that's happening simultaneously. So there's two parts to it, right? There's some places that are trying to pull, it makes sense, right? Because it's everything. Your human capital is all you have. So you're trying to recruit, get people, especially those people really driven, ambitious, skilled. Hey, come here, right? We're going to provide you the opportunity to be judged on what you do on your work, and not this stuff about who you are. And then at the same time, you have the organizations, often the same entity, right? The same society, the same part of the world, is simultaneously trying to say to their own people, don't leave. This is the place for you. We are so happy you're here and you're born here, you came here, and we want you to stay. So this is all going on. How does it relate to me and sitting in Texas at my little business as a lawyer? Well, it relates a lot, because I'm motivated when I see these cases where people are being judged based on who they are and not what they're doing, because they're not supposed to, and I know about the laws have to be enforced, and of course I'm going to do everything I can because it touches to the core of sort of my fundamental principles on who we are as humans and our opportunity. And of course, like I said, myself, in a minute, if I'm in a part of the world and things change, or I don't have an opportunity to be judged on what I do, and I can't be able to support myself, and I don't have the ability of self-determination, I'm going to do everything in my power to get to whatever place I need to go, and try to be able to contribute. Now, I'm hopeful, and of course, like many people, I have allegiance and don't want to leave places that I care about. But I'm saying in a worst case scenario, all of us and people, especially who have children or nieces and nephews, they don't want to have that another generation doomed with no opportunity to better their lives. I mean, that's just sort of the basics of our individual autonomy as humans. So I took these cases as a lawyer, and I kept seeing all these things that were happening. I saw falsified job evaluations. I saw completely illegal proof. I mean, who does this, right? Managers, executives, HR, people emailed and put in writing illegal things like, oh, we did this because, you're a woman. Who does this? Oh, it happened. And I had a couple, I had one case, I had a couple more cases. And so I took the case, I represented the people, and what was my job? My job was to represent them, to make that company, that employer, the government agency, whoever it was, to make them whole. That's what the law, what basically, to put them in the position they would have been if they'd been judged on what they do and not based on who they are. So it might be, paying them, salary or promotions they were denied, might be, some other type of monetary settlement. It might be claiming, trying to get them to change their policies. Many of my clients from memory, I want to say all of my clients in these cases, really what they told me they wanted the most was an apology. They wanted the employer or somebody there to say they're sorry. And that's actually, oddly enough, the hardest thing to do. People will pay money, especially, these organizations, they have their own, so I start dealing with them as a lawyer representing my client, and their lawyers deal with me, whatever. And people will negotiate and spend all this time over, how much they'll pay and if they'll give a positive reference and all this kind of stuff. But nobody wants to ever admit what they call liability. So in other words, you're not going to get the apology, because their argument is, if I say I'm sorry, then it means I actually did it. And most of these cases, but nobody's saying they did anything wrong. They're just settling it to to sort of save resources and whatever. So I saw more and more of these cases, especially with big employers, because I thought, oh, it would make sense if you saw these little employers, like, it's a place that has 20 employees, and the people that run it don't really know anything about the law or HR. I would have understood it, but that's not what I was seeing. I was seeing these huge organizations, and I kept thinking, it doesn't make any sense, because the people that work there work at the finest, largest, most well-known organizations. They're paid well. Many of them have gone to the finest education programs, so they're trained in HR, they're trained in management. I don't understand. And what it came down to, in a very simplistic sense, was people actually do know what the law says. The challenge is that in real life, the sort of interpersonal part of work was sort of what was spoiling the pot. And so what I mean by that is, if you went to ask people, who do you want? The accountant that has this, higher level of experience and has wonderful references and has these sort of elite level substantive knowledge areas, or do you want this other person who has no experience and was fired from the last 3 jobs and has none of this substantive area expertise? They'd say, want the first person. But then if you say, well, one is this religion and the other one is this gender and one is this color and one is this national origin, then you get and one is in a wheelchair, one is a hearing impaired, then you get all this stuff where, even though they know what they want, when you talk about the actual just sort of the sort of list of ideas abstractly, right? So here's a list on one qualified, more qualified candidate, here's the less. Then they see it and they're like, of course I want the most qualified. The challenge is, in real life, it's interpersonal. And so all this other stuff, all these cultural issues and stereotypes and bias and prejudice and fear, insecurity, people who started working at a time when the laws were different. So you didn't have to have these laws where you really could. I mean, used to, not that long ago in the U.S. and many parts of the world still currently, and I mean not that long ago in the U.S. So I'm not a young person. I'm not, a teenager. I know it's shocking. I look like one. No, I don't. But what I'm saying is I'm not, a teenager, but I'm the first generation in my family where I was born into the world where the laws allowed me from the moment, from the moment I was born, and the laws had changed, and I mean they had just changed. So when my parents were born, the laws were very different, and they weren't going to be able to surpass their goals, because there are all these laws, and then there were cultural practices based on ethnicity and national origin and color and race and all this kind of stuff that really impacted them, and prevented them from having the same opportunity I have, because I was born later. And like I said, I'm not a teenager, but I'm not, depending on how old you are, I'm not old. This just happened. So when I'm sitting in my law firm and I'm seeing this happen over and over again, I'm getting really confused, and I'm thinking, what on earth? These are big organizations, big companies or government agencies. What is happening? And then again, the thing that's messing up the system isn't that the people don't know the law and that they don't know what their policy is that they should be doing as a manager. Because look, you ask any business person, what do you want? Qualified person, and someone will show up early on time, do it right the first time, or do you want somebody who shows up late, doesn't know what they're doing? Well, I want the person who shows up on time, the person who knows what they're doing. Well, everybody will say that. But in real life, what I figured out after handling several of these cases was, on paper, they can see it and it's easy. But in real life, when the humans meet the other humans, then all of a sudden all this other sort of stuff poisons the process, because they'll think, well, can someone who looks like that do this? Can someone from that gender or that religion or that national origin or with that accent? You get all that same stuff that we just told, that whole narrative that people will literally honestly risk their lives. People die trying to get to some other place for the potential opportunity. This is such a powerful thing, but yet in real life, we humans, are not immune to this. And part of it is because they're cultural. So, it's sort of in the culture. And you hear this all the time. We did a program where we talked about recently, some of these things with stereotype threat, where, if women are told before they take a test, oh, this test is to, show that women do poorly on math. And then you give them a math test, their scores are going to be low. Artificially low, because if you gave them the same exact test, but before you gave them the test, you told them, oh, this is just a test because everybody needs to take it when they register. It's just part of registration. Don't worry about it. Then their test scores are higher. And the thing is, we have these stereotypes depending on where we are on the planet. The details are different, but the story is the same. The stereotype tells us that something's good, something's bad. And it gives us groups, obviously, because we don't know all the different people on the planet, because there's over 7 billion people on the planet. And so it's sort of a shortcut way for us to figure stuff out. And they're not all necessarily harmful, but they are very pervasive. And so the stereotype tells you that certain groups are good at something or bad at something. Then people, until you challenge that in your own mind, people sort of go with it. And again, the issue is when you're human and you're out and trying to live your life, then people are, when they see you on paper, when they read your credentials, you're not necessarily gonna have a problem, because most parts of the world people will say, oh, well, of course we want the best qualified, because everyone's competing. Remember that, like we said, a healthy, not scary competition, where each part of the world is trying to keep people that are, they don't want brain drain, and they're also trying to lure people from other places to come there. So so everyone's trying to do that. The challenge though is when you put a real human with a real human, then all this stuff, these cultural and stereotypical prejudice things, people prejudge the group based on these stereotypes, it all kicks in. And even though if you ask somebody, again, abstractly, they would tell you, of course I wouldn't do that. But when you put the person in front of them who isn't what they, quote, expected them to do, it just, for some people who aren't sufficiently aware of how their own behavior is and aren't monitoring this stuff, they get caught up in these decisions. And especially if it challenges their expectation. Right? If someone says, oh, I'm looking for a CPA, and then somebody shows up who doesn't look at all what they expect, then then there's a whole bunch of research we talk about in lots of programs about the psychology of that. What do you do then? Because in your mind you're thinking, well, that's not what that's supposed to be. Who is this person? And then people are trying to make things fit. They're trying to think, well, that doesn't make sense. And so then that's where you'll get stuff where somebody will say to the qualified person at work, oh yeah, you did an okay job, but I still worry about the promotion, because women, are really sensitive. Or you did an okay job, but men aren't really going to be, good at this job. They don't have, they're not caring enough. Whatever, it kicks in. And even though if you ask the person ahead of time, they would tell you they would never do that. In real life, when they're confronted with another human, we're organisms, and so all of these things sort of they're with us, and we don't often even know what they are. That's why in a lot of those programs, what they call diversity and things like that, a lot of it is, hopefully, if it's well structured, is trying to make you and I understand what are our own, already existing, bias, stereotype, and prejudice, because everybody wants to deny that we operate from them, and that's a lie. We all operate from tons of them. We have to, because you can't know everything in the world. So we use shortcuts just to sort of make sense of the massive amount of information. And like I said, some stereotypes aren't necessarily going to be, harmful. If I have a stereotype that people who are, habitually, show up late to work, they have bad time management. Okay, that's a stereotype, but it's often going to be, somewhat accurate. I said habitually. So I know the argument, someone will say, well, I was habitually late to work, so I had a medical problem. Well, yeah, but then assuming you were in the States, you would have gone and asked for a accommodation for your medical issues, and then you never would have seemed late because you would have been on time because you had an accommodation for your medical issues. So what I'm arguing simply is that not all of these things are necessarily, again, good or bad. We get caught up in all these frameworks. They just exist. Right? So part of it is being aware of what our own issues are, which is much harder than it sounds. And the other thing then is continuing to ask ourselves, what's the best thing for our organization? Just like we said, parts of the world and nations and communities are doing that little competition, trying to stop brain drain and then encourage brain drain from other parts of the globe so people come there. It's the same thing that businesses do. Governmental agencies and private sector businesses all are doing the exact same thing. They want the best person to work for them. So they want them to come in and stay. That's part of keeping them, retention. And then they also want to pull. They want to attract. They want brain drain to happen at other agencies or at other government or at other parts of the world. They want brain drain to happen at other competitive for-profit companies because they want those people to leave that place and come there so that they can have all that intellectual knowledge and capital. And it's a huge asset. Everybody's playing the same, game. And so when we talk about workplace, the thing that was causing the problem usually in my situation as a lawyer was that it was this workplace relationship thing. It wasn't the law necessarily, because if I talk to the lawyers who work at the place, they know it. That's, they had to pass the same, licensing and everything I did, so of course they know it. When I talk to senior executives in HR, they know it. Now sometimes there's a problem where the organization didn't take the law seriously enough. They never even explained and trained their managers and supervisors on that, and they didn't train and explain it to their non-supervisors, which is really important. So obviously what I did as a reaction to that is I went out and I started doing corporate training and education seminars. We've talked about this, right? That I went all over the world, and I was doing what? I was doing training often at your place of work, and I was doing all kind of training, uh, you know, uh, harassment-free workplace, diversity. I would do specific training on specific laws. But those were usually with managers and or HR. So I'm talking to them about the laws regarding wage and hour. I'm talking to them about the laws regarding workers' compensation, where someone is ill or injured in the scope of work. I'm talking to them about the laws regarding equal treatment and opportunity for hiring, for firing. I'm talking to them about how to document and discipline an employee. So I'm doing all this, right? And again, I had a suspicion before I went out and started doing the corporate education training that I thought these people at these big organizations that are well known can't have a knowledge deficiency. And that's not it, because when I went out and started training in person, I'm right there, I'm working with people. The senior subject matter experts did know. The lawyers know, the human resources know, but in some organizations, the executives didn't understand how imperative. This is not an option; it is required. It is required. In fact, in the U.S., there's been a Supreme Court ruling, so it's mandatory, right? That they have periodic training. That you have to tell people what their rights are. You can't just have a right, but then you don't tell them. So in the U.S., in many parts of the world, they actually require the government, requires you to put like signs and notes so that people, there's your right to, minimum wage or safety at work or whatever. They force them to put up the signs at their workplace. They made it a rule, because what happens is if you don't tell people what their rights are, people don't know. Not every, a lot of people have no interest in this stuff. They don't, they're like, I don't know, I don't care. Now, if you ask them, do you care how much money you make, that you're not being cheated, or that you're being paid lesser than your peer coworker just because of your appearance, they totally care. If you talk to them and say, do you care about being at work and being exposed to dangerous chemicals or environmental hazards that could harm you or potentially kill you? Yeah, I care. So you have to frame it in the right way. But what I'm saying is, not everybody is going to go out and have all this knowledge, and so the government in many parts of the world actually has a mandate and force, not in a negative way, but they have to force employers to take up some of this responsibility and say, look, you got to tell people when they work. Since they're working for you, they're working. You got to tell them what their rights are. This is part of ongoing education, and then hopefully, ideally, my personal opinion is you supplement that with in many parts of the world, and we've got free education at a certain level, and I would hope more of that would be teaching young children what are your rights, right? So that the government's doing some of that teaching, and now if you get a job, then you're required there for them to teach you some of it, right? And like I said, so I'm out and I'm in these places and doing all this education and training, and I really was surprised at how little people either shared what they knew, and even if they knew things, I was surprised at how much these sort of interpersonal issues will trump their knowledge, because that's the psychology part of it. That's the sort of the sociology part of it, right? I know I shouldn't do this, but I'm doing it anyway because it's so deeply ingrained and how my worldview. And then add this jealousy, just the basic, just jealousy, humans, right? I mean, this is in every historical narrative that we've ever in jealousy. So you have somebody who's, they're doing okay. They're hiring people for what they do. So they got the best accountant, they have the best janitor. Things are going okay there. But there's somebody there, and for whatever reason, it's individually triggering the jealousy. They're just jealous of them. Wow, they did that better than I did, or everybody thinks they're funnier than I am. People like them more. All this kind of stuff. Now, this has nothing to do with the laws necessarily, at least on the face of it. But these sort of just human behavioral and interpersonal things are what cause all of this workplace problem. They're what causes the brain drain. there's so many we've done so many programs. We talk about the data on people that leave a job, and it's not because they didn't enjoy their work. It's not because they didn't enjoy the task. It's because they couldn't stand the people. The manager was abusive or humiliated them or tried to sabotage them. We did a program on managers who were insecure and fear, right? And the manager's insecurity and fear and how that destroys, it decimates a department. It just decimates an entire organization. Now, it might be that manager, when you talk to them, because I've done this when I was traveling around hundreds of days a year, going to all these different workplaces on the ground, trying to solve solutions, right? Their specific issues. That's what they hired me. They said, oh, we have a problem with wage and hour. We have a problem with engagement. We have a problem with retention. We have a problem with turnover. We have a problem with people won't speak to each other in the office, whatever. I create content. I come and I deliver it. And what I'm trying to do is and it's like a huge laboratory. In some ways, this was one of the most exciting and wonderful things for me to do with my areas of expertise and curiosity. I just went to all these, hundreds of different places around the world. And humans are humans. So you're going to get jealousy. You're going to get spite. You're going to get insecurity. You're going to get fear. You're also going to get that coupled with cultural issues and cultural stereotypes and prejudice, and all this stuff comes together. And so what happens is something that I initially thought, well, this, it's about the law. Nah. And then, because of course I love business and I have my, master's degree in business administration, and I teach business, and I'm an entrepreneur. I love business. I thought, well, we'll talk about business, because business people talk about business. I don't really, and you'll hear that all the time with people. I don't care what color. I don't care what color they are. I don't care if they're purple. Are they good at what they do? I just want to make money. I just want to be successful, right? And you'll tend to see that, especially with people who run organizations or executives at big companies, and you see it with entrepreneurs, because you have to. If you're a big company or small company, but you're the one that sees the big picture about, hey, the basic line is, if I don't make enough money to keep going, I'm gonna have to close. And you can be, you can think you're too big to fail, and you fail, because the math will get you in the end. It's always the math. The closer you are to being able to make decisions that impact the numbers, and the closer you are to seeing all the numbers, and the more you feel this. We got to hire the best people. We need to go brain drain all of our competitors and have them stay here and retain them, because that's the only way we can keep this thing, going as a viable entity. And the challenge, though, is you move away from that, right? So if you have a person who's a small solo business freelancer or whatever, entrepreneur, and then they start adding more people, the larger it grows and the further you move away from the executive position where you're looking at the big picture, people don't see it like that. And that also amazed me, right? So I went to all these places to do my education programs and training and consulting, and I was shocked at how little people thought about that. They just thought, I work at this place, I get X amount of dollars a month, and they never really thought about or tied that to sort of the big picture and how precarious all this stuff is. It's all precarious. There's no magic, money tree that there's where the money is for your paycheck. It has to be generated. But the further you are away from making those decisions, it seems like it creates a bit of, there's distance. So people aren't focusing on that. And that's where you'll get someone who is in that sort of further away situation where even though, if you ask them again directly, they'd say, well, no, of course, I want to hire the best. I need the best. When I get somebody here that's really good at their job, I don't want them to leave just because they're mad because the manager was mean to them or jealous of them or looked, insultingly toward them. That's stupid, right? But when they're in real life, especially the further they are away from the sort of the macro big picture understanding, bottom line, we have to keep this thing open, keep the lights on, as they say in business, keep it as a going concern. So, sort of in the middle of it, the further away they are from making that decision, then I think the more susceptible they are to, their own jealousy, their own spite, their own feelings of insecurity overwhelming their decision making. And so even though if you ask them, don't you want the best accountant? They'll say, of course. But then then they get further away from sort of the big picture and they just get obsessed with on a day-to-day basis, there's that person and they're a really good accountant, but, maybe people think they're better than I am. Maybe they want my job. I think that they know more than I do. I think that, they're trying to sabotage me. People get caught up in all this stuff. Now, none of it's related to the job, but it's related to the relationship. The individual person carrying all their stereotypes, bias, and also insecurities, fears, envy, all this stuff, right? And then the other human triggers stuff. And as I did all the the years started to go by, and the consulting, the education, and the training, and I'm doing hundreds and hundreds of these, and I already done all these other lawsuits. I realized, in legal cases, this has nothing to do with the actual business um, framework or organizational structure or strategic plan, or what the law says. All of this has to do with the human element, and that's why I came up with workplace relationship. Because of course I do, where I go and I talk about a specific law, or I go and I talk about a specific type of strategic leadership, or I talk about a specific type of employee engagement. Of course I do all of that. But the main issue that I'm doing is looking at the big picture, and trying to help them understand that what you have to deal with is the deeper issue of how you relate to each other, and all these triggers, right? I'm insecure, I'm jealous, I'm envious, I'm fearful, and then I also may have some stereotypical cultural issues with bias and all this, and prejudice, and all this is what clogs up the system and creates bad business outcomes. Now, one of the things that's exciting for me now is again, technology. So when I started this, almost 17 years ago as a lawyer, certainly, then the internet technology was nowhere near what it is now. None of this stuff existed, smartphones and all this kind of stuff, tablets. But what you're seeing more now is virtual work. And virtual work, I think, potentially holds a key to mitigating some of this sort of the gunky stuff that's clogging up business outcomes and creating legal violations. Because if I'm not having to see the person, and I'm just looking at their work, and I'm monitoring the quality of their work, then it in some ways makes it easier, because it's not triggering in me all this other sort of human to human reaction. Oh, they're taller than I am, they're shorter than I am, I can't, blah blah blah, all this other stuff. It distills it to just the work, and in some ways there are advantages to that. In other words, there are huge disadvantages to it. So the workplace relationship expert is exactly what it sounds like. I focus on, of course, all the parts of it, right? So the organizational structure, making sure you're not in silos, doing everything I can, look at the communication, focusing on the data of what your feedback tells me your employees' perceptions are, and then I focus, of course, on integrating whatever your legal framework is into that. So making sure that whatever your decisions that you're making for your business are also within the parameters of the legal issues. I don't need to practice law in every one of these jurisdictions in the world, but of course, as a lawyer, I do understand the importance of the law. Do you see? And then I also, of course, am working with organizations to elevate their human resource professionals and functions, so that you're disseminating this information to your team members. Again, that's where a lot of this gets clogged up too, is people don't even know what their rights are. You need to tell them. You're required to in many parts of the world, but forget that, it benefits you. Remember, you have a simultaneous job. One, you want to keep your talented, right, people. You want brain drain. You don't want them to leave. That's what retention is. That's why it's so important. The other thing is you want to lure other people from other organizations to come into your organization, because the more high quality the caliber of your work product and the intellect that you have and the skill level, then the better your service will be, or products will be, and everything is easier, right? You don't have the conflicts and the backstabbing and time wasted on inefficient workers, because you have a whole bunch of people who are super psyched and it's high performing. And when we study business organizations, it's amazing the difference. And me going in person, all these different types of organizations around the world, a lot of global multinationals, some of the largest employers and brand names in the world. I've been to their businesses and seen the difference between some of these really high performing organizations in terms of either revenue, stock performance, and then I've been to places that are struggling, and it's like night and day. It's just like when you go to people's, if you have people socially, and you go in one people's apartment, and it's like, oh, this is really nice, and oh yeah, I kind of get it. This is nice, relaxing, good environment. People seem to be getting along, and then you go to other people's apartment that and it's a disaster. It's a mess. Literally, it's messy. You can't find stuff. It's dirty. People are screaming, yelling at each other. There's conflict. There's tension in the air. Nothing's getting done. It's not hard to figure out why you're getting bad outcomes when you see the relationships. And that's so much of what I'm doing, is I'm always remembering, obviously, your law, which is what you have to do, ethics, what you should do, and then of course I'm thinking about the relationships, because I know where the triggers are that cause these problems. And if we don't talk about those and manage and train for those and prepare our team members, then it's going to sabotage it. And what's sad? When people destroy their own careers with this stuff. Where if they really had understood the impact that their insecurity or their self-esteem problems have, they would have gone through their counseling program that's available and gotten help. You can address these issues and treat them right? The person who's suffering from, stifling insecurity, fear of loss of control, micromanagement, all that stuff can be treated by professionals through whatever, program of resources are necessary to help that person address those issues and change that behavior, right? And have a better quality of life. So the workplace relationship expert, I made up this term because it was more effective in describing what I do. Because I'm always asking clients big picture. Don't just tell me about this one little piece that you're freaking out about, that this factory, that is less productive, or that you're having a team member who's threatening a lawsuit, or I need to see the big picture. I'll see it anyway because I'm going to ask a whole bunch of other questions, and I'm going to do a ton of analysis to see what's really happening. And I'm not going to just isolate that one issue. I will deal with the one issue that's important to you, but I'm going to create that solution around these bigger problems. And I'm going to do everything I can to, again, encourage my organization clients. You have got to elevate the power of understanding what human resources function is. You have to. And you have to disseminate information. Your lowest level supervisor has got to understand the ramifications of what they're doing, and you've got to go and invest in your employees, non-supervisors and supervisors, to help them understand what their rights and responsibilities are, and to empower them to address and face their fears, insecurities, doubts, fear of loss of control, these sort of legacy things that are hobbling their career. It's a lot of work. And so if you look on the show page, of course, episode 175, you'll see that I put the definition for workplace, just, from the dictionary. Of course, it's a place where work is done. Easy. Again, it could be a physical plant or factory or office. It could be a park or a football stadium. I don't care where, but that's the work. And now with the technology, it could be virtual. So maybe, everybody's distributed and maybe they're at their house or wherever, but their work is online. It's irrelevant where, but it's the workplace. The thing is, if you ignore the relationship aspect of this and just keep focusing on, we don't understand, our managers aren't giving performance evaluations that they should, we don't seem to have an improvement in our retention, because you're not paying attention to the relationship part. And the relationship part is where it sort of, that's what poisons your system. Because on paper, everybody is in unanimous, of course, you want the best. We don't want to have brain drain occur to us. We want to be able to entice other people to come here. But then in real life, they're not doing that because of all this other, psychological, emotional, behavioral, and then, of course, culturally layered on top of that are these other stereotypes. That's what's that's the problem. And that's why I talk about it, because you can't isolate a work-related situation and think you're not going to have to deal with these other deeper, bigger issues that are driving your manager to engage in behavior that's making people that are awesomely talented quit. So again, the show page, I have the link to relationship, and from the dictionary, and it says relationship, the way in which two or more people, groups, countries, etc., talk to, behave toward, and deal with each other. Boom! That's part of what I'm talking about. So you're at work, place where you work, and the way that the people at work talk to, behave toward, and deal with each other, that's what I'm talking about. So some of it, of course, may be impacted by or influenced by these stereotypes, but other part of it is just this other human stuff. Envy, jealousy, insecurity, fear, apprehension, anxiety, doubt, all that stuff. And then dictionary definition, the second part says romantic or sexual friendship between two people. That's not the part I'm talking about. Because in some instances, if that happens, it could potentially be a sexual harassment or inappropriate workplace relationship. The third part of the dictionary definition says the way in which two or more people or things are connected. Boom! That's what I'm talking about. You're at work, you work together. You're connected. You have the same employer. So how you talk to each other is impacted by, to a less degree than you would think, the business and the mission statement and all that kind of stuff, which is what everybody spends all their time on. It's part of it, and it's important, but it's sort of the surface level. The deeper issues of why you're with a manager yelling at another one, or you've got two team members who are giving each other the silent treatment and won't speak to each other, or you have somebody, sabotaging another coworker and bullying them. All that stuff has nothing to do with your mission statement or any other thing. What it has to do with the behavior of the person, and there are reasons they're doing that. But you got to get deeper individually for them to be able to see what it is they're doing. You have to hold them accountable, provide, hopefully, if you have the treatment resources available to them, for them to be able to get the help they need to stop. But this is not something that you're going to solve with sort of, hey, here's a reminder of our mission statement. They know what it is already. They're not doing it for deeper seated reasons that are psychological, emotional, cultural, things of that nature. So that, I hope, explains it. And so basically what I do is, I research, I write about, I talk about, I teach these organizational outcomes, right? That's what I said. The brain drain, people leave, you can't recruit the best people, your revenue numbers are lower than your competitors. Those are the organizational outcomes are negative. Why are they negative? Because of the way people are treating each other, there's relationships. And it could be between an individual, it could be between departments. How often do I deal with that issue, right? Well, we don't trust that department. Really? Okay. Um, so it could be between individuals, it could be between different departments, it could be between different segments of the organization. So managers have a perspective toward non-managers, or non-managers have perspective toward managers, or whatever, between peers. It's all kind of stuff, but it's basically the individual relationship part, how people behave towards and talk to and deal with each other. That's what's causing your bad outcomes. That's what's causing the bad outcome. And so that's why I talk about it, and that's why I focus on it as sort of my primary overarching theme. And then within the workplace relationship expert, of course, I'll individually deal with, maybe a specific legal issue, a specific organizational issue, a specific engagement issue, a specific event that's happening, a company's going public, whatever, and I'll plug it into this bigger framework. And that's why I'm going to take a positive moment to say I think that's part of the reason I've been so effective in this, is because you can't isolate this stuff. The outcome is impacted by several things. The easiest part to address is the law and the organizational structure, policies, procedures, mission statement, because you just make that up and they're just written. You can change that or modify that very easy. The law is really simple. What does the law say? That's what it says. Okay, done. What's your mission statement? Oh, we don't like the one we have. We changed it. Great, here's a new one. That part's the easy part. It's the implementation part that's the hard part. And the reason it's hard is because you have all this human sort of latent or expressed, behavior that's what we have to deal with. And so that's why I'm the workplace relationship expert. I hope that was helpful, and I think it's a great question, and I hope that it did make you understand my perspective on why, when you do these programs, of course, I talk about all these, what some people will call sort of the more, substantive areas. And then I do all the stuff about, value and self-worth and insecurity, because they're one issue. They're not two issues or one issue. And if you don't treat them both, then you're not going to get the good outcome that you want that's sustainable. And I think that the challenge, of course, is that we often want to not talk about these workplace relationship issues, because they implicate us. Like I said, we don't want to examine our own behavior. Why did I do that? Was I jealous? Was I frightened? And that's much harder for people to sit and have an analysis of than to sort of sit there and say, well, let's look at the policy manual on page 34 and look at, that's the first part, but it's sort of the surface level part. Now I need to get to understand why did you not do that, or why did you do that? And that's the behavioral part. And that's why in my last degree program, I'd focus so much on psychology, right? And additional human resource management and criminal justice, because these are all parts of this, and is to understand why did they do that, and what can we do as an employer to, when I come in to do corporate training education, what can we do now proactively to help them and stop them sabotaging themselves, sabotaging our organization, making brain drain our enemy, because we can't retain the best people, we're burning out our superstars, we can't recruit anyone because we start to get the reputation amongst our population of applicants that this isn't a place they want to be. What can we do? Well, that's what I'm here for. And it's intense, but I have by addressing sort of the totality of the situation, at least big picture, we can give more tools to people so they can individually address some of these issues, insecurity or fear, while getting a refresher on understanding the policies and a good understanding of the basics of the law, so they understand, bright lines. Don't do that, do this, and here's why. And disseminating that to everybody in the organization needs to have an understanding of what's, expectations, rights, and options for help. And incredible change can happen. But it's an exciting thing, and I've enjoyed every moment of being a workplace relationship expert, or the workplace relationship expert, and I'm hopeful that you and I will be able to continue to have more programs. You'll stay a community member, or that I will be of service to you through any other professional education, training, seminars, programs, or resources that are available. But that was our episode 175. Again, please come to our website, CourtneyAnderson.com. Support our show sponsors. There's ads and affiliate marketing and links to products and services that are available. Please purchase, explore those. Um, we have some great human resource management materials and marketing through some of our partners there. So I'll make sure that you explore those so that we can let our partners know that our community members are invested and serious about the what we're offering, and we can continue to grow our program and spread the show on your social media and send me any communication. Let me know what's on your mind and what I can do to be of assistance, and potentially you can be the source for our next Courtney, I Am Curious series show. So again, thank you for being here, and get out there and make sure that your workplace is the optimum that it can be for your own individual outcome, so that you can practice a joyful art of business, and so that you again can hire and retain and keep the most talented and dedicated and excited and passionate team members. So thank you for being part of the community and the program today.